So there's a common stage in business where I see a lot of dietitians and nutritionists in business hover. So you're making money, you're seeing some clients, but somehow you are stuck at that 8K a month mark, and maybe some months you go above 10K, you might make 12 or 15K, but it just doesn't feel consistent. And you might feel reactive in business and you're wondering, how do I break past the ceiling and get to consistent 5-figure months, whether it's 10K, 20K or 30K, and things start to feel more stabilized. So that's exactly what we're going to be uncovering in today's conversation. Hi, I'm Charlene Oy, dietitian turned business and marketing coach, and you're listening to the Nutrition Business Show. Hey there, welcome back to the Nutrition Business Show. I'm so happy to have you here. Now, today I've brought on a very special guest. Her name is Katrina Cobb. She has been on the podcast last year. She's a support coach inside our program, Momentum Club. So she knows the challenges, she knows what the landscape is running a nutrition business. And today we're diving into some big and deep conversations. First of all, we're going to talk about why some practitioners are stuck below the 5-figure months and what is missing. So if you're in that stage, you can also start to see what are some of the blocks that's holding you back. Secondly, we're going to talk to the practitioners who are wanting to shift to 30K months in business. So we're going to share some more insights around how business owners at that stage think, how they structure their business. So that's going to give you some insight on how you can get there as well. And then we're going to talk about some of the mindset stuff, what it's like running a business as a female, and some of the mental load that we carry, and give you some advice on how you can navigate that. So if you're someone who is wanting to grow your business, you know that you're capable of so much more, but you're just not quite sure how to get there. Today's conversation is not only going to inspire you, but also show you how you can move forward as well. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Katrina. Hey there, Katrina. Welcome back to the Nutrition Business Show. It's so lovely to have you back here again.
Always fun to get to chat in real time.
Yeah, amazing, Katrina. So good. Now, you have been with us on coaching our clients in Momentum Club for about 3 to 4 years now. I think it's closer to 4 years. So you know the nutrition and dietitian space a lot, especially where it pertains to business. But last time when we had you on the podcast, we talked about lead magnets and funnels. And today I want to have a little bit of a different conversation and speak to the practitioner who is around the 2 to 5K months and they want to scale to 10 to 20K. But before we go there, why don't you just do a quick intro for our listeners who don't know you?
Awesome. So I'm Katrina. Again, I've been in the coaching space 15 plus years, before that in lots of other business and architectural endeavors. And I've had the chance to coach while traveling the world, but building kind of my own life and really using my ability to understand business, understand people to help others grow a business that supports what they want for their life as well. So that's been my underpinning for a while, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful combination. You get to do all the things you love. You're very into art as well. And before we started recording, I was just talking about how amazing it is that you get to travel for art and be able to work and support other coaches and other clients as well. So it's beautiful.
I love the flexibility of a well-designed business. And I think that's what's so great about the work we get to do, is help people have the life they want fueled by a successful business. So that's a really great kind of equation that is really exciting for me to get to be a part of and live on my own side as well.
Yeah, to be able to practice what you preach, right? I think it's so beautiful. And have that freedom to be the architect of your business.
Exactly.
Amazing. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the practitioner who is making some money and they want to get to that 5-figure month or multiple 5 figures. What do you think are some of the things that are holding them back or stopping them from reaching for that next level?
You know, it's a great question because so many people find themselves there, right? And I think what we see is it's usually not a strategy problem. It's almost always an identity and a structure problem. So the identity of still acting like a practitioner, not like a business owner, still being a bit overgiving or people pleasing to clients, not having their own authority or confidence in what they're doing. And the structure is usually when it comes down to what are they actually offering? How are they actually building something that can get them to the revenue levels they want? Because a lot of times in the beginning, more of the same is not the answer for many people. But until we look at the practicalities of what their offering is, what their capacity is, how they're delivering their service. Sometimes it just seems like that's the obvious thing to always do what they've always done. And I find that that can be one of the biggest areas to change in the beginning, because more clients and more hours is a finite equation. We can't just do that forever, right?
Yeah, and it's exhausting, but a lot of us stay there because it's all that we know. You get taught in university, book a client in, see them for an hour for initial consult, follow up with them every few weeks, 30 minutes, and that's the benchmark of what most people charge. And so everyone kind of starts with that, and it's scary to move outside of that mold. And I also do think that, from a structural standpoint, there isn't a lot of examples out there for us to follow. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of the business. So how can someone transition from that one-on-one to offering something that allows them to have more flexibility in the schedule?
There's, a couple different strategies, but the one that we really focus on is how can you, if you find yourself having the same conversation with your clients over and over and over again, that's a big green flag. That could probably be translated into a one-to-many opportunity, whether that's a live group program, a course format, a hybrid of the such. We tend to, as experts, we have a really great base of advice, but we tend to have to give similar advice to similar people on a regular basis. So as soon as we can identify that to me is, I think, one of the easiest ways to start thinking differently about your business. How can you serve more people instead of just more time for more clients? What are the levers you can pull? And one of those is transitioning to a one-to-many option or pre-recorded content or some other way to deliver your expertise in a way that people will get value out of, but it doesn't require your live time on a one-on-one basis. And I think, to your point, they aren't teaching this in the schools, certifications, the things that most practitioners are going through, right? This is really an online business mechanism that we can apply to a practitioner's actual business, whether it's in person or online.
And we see that quite a bit with our clients across a range of niches as well. A lot of people say to me, I'm not sure how that's going to work for this area of nutrition, but there often, if you dig deeper, is a lot of recurring information that you cover with your clients, whether it's talking about the plate, macros, protein, meal spacing. There is so much that you repeat. So try and pick out the things that are common, and that becomes the core part of what you talk about. So that's really good to get our listeners to start thinking about that, because it's hard to see a way out when you're kind of stuck in that situation.
Yep, definitely. One of my mentors once told me, what's personal is universal. And I always found that was such a useful grounding kind of like phrase to remember, that we're all humans. We all struggle similar things. Even if the individual feels like they're the only one that's ever had this problem ever, we know that's likely not the case, right? And you as a practitioner will also know there's commonalities. And so it's just kind of flipping the belief system is again part of it. Could you help people in a different way? And could you help more people in a different way? And I think once you start asking yourself those questions, things get really exciting.
It's getting curious and exploring what else is out there. And I think that once you dip your toes into that, you start to open up your eyes to see more and what is happening out there. And I'd love to chat a little bit more about this topic as well, of going online, creating something online that's quite digital and very different to our one-to-one consult style. So looking at group programs, we talked about memberships or online courses and programs. We're sitting in at the start of 2026. I've heard a lot of noise online around, online courses don't work anymore. So share with us some of your thoughts around this. Do you think it really works? Is there still room for that, or are courses dead?
There's no absolutes. So I will say that. But no, I think courses absolutely work if you're solving a problem. People still need problem solved, and they need problem solved in a convenient way that fits into their hectic life, that they can work around their schedule, that maybe is more accessible if they don't have the support locally that they need, but there may be somebody regionally or even globally that has the expertise. There's a beautiful opportunity to connect to people. I think what isn't working is very generic solutions or things that were thrown up really quickly with flashy marketing, but maybe didn't deliver on the promises, right? So I think people got really excited on the course bandwagon a few years ago, and now the consumers have had negative experiences with things that didn't quite deliver the promise. Those aren't working. But I do think a well-structured, well-guided, and heart-centered program where you're actually delivering the value and you're actually really helping people make that transformation, make that difference, solve that problem. Absolutely. Those are still selling every day, high ticket, low ticket, all the tickets. Solve a problem and people will buy it. That's
very simple, right? Pick
a
problem that people need solving and just start with that. Yeah, you were saying that it sells sales, low ticket, high ticket, or mid ticket whatsoever. So I think where most people are missing the mark is they kind of know what problem they need solving, but they don't go and validate that. They don't go ask the market, is this what you want? Because sometimes for us, we think this is a big problem, but to them it isn't. Just as an example, I was coaching a client yesterday and we talked about she's in the diabetes space, wanting to work with people in the non-diet approach, in the intuitive eating approach. And we talked a lot about that, being the approach itself. Is that really going to connect with what people think they want, or is it something that we think they need, right? So there's that big difference there as well. Any thoughts to share around that?
I think it's so easy as a practitioner to be so wrapped up in your methodology that we get disconnected from the actual experience of our clients and our prospects. And like the things that keep them up 3 a.m, the things that are, spinning in their brains, the things they want to go Google or ask ChatGPT or, ask an AI, whatever to help them solve. Like these are the problems they have. And your method, your belief system, that's not the thing to sell. And I think we get a little confused when we're so wrapped up in our knowledge. It's so easy to do. But I think marketing is different. Marketing is about getting the psychology of the person on the other side and really understanding. And a lot of people, you're so right, don't have the awareness of or don't have the diligence to have enough of those conversations to really understand where their prospects are at and test the messaging, ask the questions, get into their experience to get that psychological nugget of, oh no, this is what they think the problem they want solved is. That's when you start to have the magic happen and things can open up for you in business.
It's so important to have those conversations early on. It's the frustrating work, it's scary. Yep. You got to go out there and talk to people.
It's the grunt work. Yeah.
But once you get that right, everything else will fall into place and you'll start to get more clarity on what you want to build. And yeah, so that's a really important conversation for us to have, because don't fall into the trap. There is so much noise out there about courses not working. And so you go, nah, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then you just walk away from that. There are so many ways to deliver a service or an offer online. Does it just have to be in a self-paced course? We talked a lot about hybrid programs inside Momentum, where it's the course plus some level of support from you, the practitioner, because if it's areas like fertility or renal disease, there are so many different areas of nutrition that people want accountability and support. And that I feel is the missing element in a lot of programs out there, where there's the information, but there is no other layers of support added in. And I think that makes a huge difference to whether or not people see it as valuable.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, especially these days when information is easily accessible anywhere you look, not just in courses, but again, you could Google or ask an AI assistant to build you a meal plan, build you a thing. We know from a human behavior standpoint that that's not the only missing piece to get somebody a new result. They need facilitation. They need help. They need help putting the pieces in place. They're going to need maybe some mindset support, some emotion management, some other pieces that are part of a coaching and a practitioner role is actually helping them take the steps to get all the way to where they want to go. And that's really hard to do in a vacuum without some kind of support, some kind of facilitation, some sort of engagement on a human level. And I would say, especially in the age of AI, that's even more valuable these days. That's what people are really looking for, is how supported will I feel? How much access? Will anything be personalized? If I have an issue, do I have a human I can go to? What's that look like? Because that's, I think, to your point, a lot of the missing pieces for what wasn't working in the course space recently.
And I just wanted to dig deeper into that, ask you a question as well, because I see quite a few programs out there teaching you how to build AI bots for your program. And so instead of chatting to you, it saves you time. Just build a bot and they can chat to a bot. What do you think about that and how it relates to nutrition programs?
It's such a double-edged sword because I love technology. I use AI all the time. I program my own bots. I'm a big fan of leveraging it when it makes sense. I think there's a cautious line in the health space in particular, where you have to know how much can a bot actually answer versus how much does a human need to have the context, the experience, and the background to truly be able to discern what's correct for a client. So it's a little bit of a slippery slope. If it was just a business marketing bot, I think that makes sense. I think in the health space, if people are having issues where they're having symptoms or they're having a reaction to a certain diet or they're feeling certain ways or they're noticing this thing or the labs come back with X, it's a bit more of a nuanced and sensitive conversation. I suspect consumers would not be comfortable having a bot for that support. And I suspect legally it's probably also better for you to be the one offering 100%. That support. So
Yeah, especially for our regulated professionals. I think, thinking about not just convenience, but from a risk perspective as well. How does that apply to your practice? Is it HIPAA compliant? There are so many things to think about in health. And so I've thought about that long and deep, whether or not we teach that in our programs to help our clients build a bot. And I'm still thinking about it. There is so much to go through and what it can help them. Maybe in the business and marketing space, it can
customer
help them
service. I could see a customer service, but where do I find this lesson? Where do I find this tool? Where do I find this plan? Where do I find this template? Like inside a portal or inside a hub of a community, then I could see that making sense as almost like a concierge. That within a program, I think would make sense in the health space. To try to replace the dietitian or nutritionist or a practitioner, I'm not in favor of that.
And that's the concern a lot of people have. Is AI going to replace my profession? I absolutely do not think it will. There is so much room and space for us to be a part of the conversation, to be leading the client and supporting them. So I don't think we have anything to worry about, do we?
I don't think so. I think we can lean into it for what it's really good at, data analysis, these sorts of things. But we still need a human element because there's just contextual factors that at this day and age, 2026, the machines are not able to grab. They can't read facial expressions when you're on a call with somebody and realizing there's some stress or something else going on or something under the surface. That's where the human element of being a really good practitioner and actually having good bedside manner, so to speak, is something that is not duplicatable at this point. I think we can leverage tools. I don't think they're going to replace us. I think they can make us better, faster, more efficient, but you're still the expert.
Fully agree. That's great. Now let's dive into that conversation around the identity of a business owner. So you talk about how a lot of us stay in that practitioner mindset, and in order for us to get to multiple 5-figure months, to grow our business, we need to start switching to the other mode and putting on the other hat, thinking about how do you run a business, how do you market. So can we chat more about that? What are some of the things that we need to think about if we really do want to try and grow our business more efficiently?
Yeah, there's a couple things. It's being confident and taking a stance. So we do have to choose. We have to pick a niche, pick a stance, pick an offer, pick something, and stop trying to be a people pleaser, stop trying to be available to everybody else. There's this, for earlier stage practitioners, we have a fear that if we say no to something, it means we won't get clients. But it's so much easier to grow in one clear direction than to try to solve all the problems. So I think confidence in yourself to choose a lane is one of the key things in terms of an identity. I'm going to be the expert in this space. That's big. I think other shifts are getting really comfortable being visible and being okay with no and or negative feedback. We cannot grow and run an online business if we're trying to be incognito, if we're trying to be invisible, if we're afraid of showing up, if we're afraid of the trolls on the internet, if we're afraid somebody we once went on a date with 3 years ago might see our post and think something about us. That's not a mindset or an identity that we can operate in growth sustainably from, right? So I think there's a little bit of seeing yourself as the successful practitioner, business owner, thriving, abundant, empowered, and able to be resourced. I think that's the other piece. People are so afraid of letting go of parts or getting support or getting help, or we have this, especially in a lot of Western cultures, this mantra of this solo person must do it all, superwoman has to do all the things, and it must be hard, it must be challenging, it must be difficult, but if it isn't a challenge, then it wasn't worth the effort, right? And I think that's a story we can let go of from an identity standpoint. If we actually want to have the business that we want, it doesn't have to be painful and hard. You could find support, have a VA, get a coach, have these other things that make that journey faster, simpler, and easier, and so much worth it. So being a person who accepts resources and support, I think, is the other major identity shift a lot of folks need to get into to get to where they want to go.
Yeah, so true. And I think a lot of that comes back to trusting yourself as well, because I think for a lot of people in the earlier stages of business, we kind of go, we're just going to, do some stuff and see how it works out. And we don't really immerse ourselves fully into that experience, that 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm not sure if it doesn't work out. It'll be fine. I'll go back and look for another job. And it's really the wrong space to be in. If you know that you want to make this work, back yourself. And I think really just commit yourself to that journey. How long you take to get there, it depends. Some people will get to 10K months in 6 months because they've got all the time in the world. Some don't. But at the end of the day, if you trust yourself, I think that self-trust is such a huge element of what we teach in our programs as well, just really getting our clients to back themselves, believe in themselves. And the ones that I see who are more successful, they have this vision. I want to get to, this stage in my business, let's say 10K months. And they show up like the 10K a month business owner. They make decisions quick. They're not staying in limbo going, I don't know what to call my business name. Someone help me. And they spend weeks and weeks
designing a logo. Yeah. Instead of actually taking this scary action of moving forward. Yeah. I think that's operating as if you already have the thing is an amazing mindset to play with. That's a beautiful point because that's really what it's going to take. The brain is going to try to protect you and try to keep you safe, which means avoiding frustrations, disappointments, people saying negative things, all of that. But that's not going to help you move forward. So you have to acknowledge that side of the brain and do the work anyway, or find a way to trust that if something happens, you can handle it. Like that's really what self-trust for me in business comes down to is like, if and when something adverse may happen, could you figure it out? Yeah, that's a better place to play from.
Yeah, and most of us will, if we spend some time thinking about it, asking for advice, you will figure it out ultimately. It will work. Everything is figure-outable. What's that term that Marie Forleo says? And that's incredible. It's such an important mindset to operate from. So, Katrina, you work with a lot of business owners who are further along in business as well. They're at that 30K month mark. And what do you think they do differently or act differently to be at that point in their career or business?
It's shades of what we were just talking about, but I think it starts with a lot of clarity. They know their offer, they know their positioning, they're consistently showing up, and they have a marketing system that's working them. They're not just marketing when they feel like it, when they feel inspired. They actually have a system and a process. So they're selling all the time, not just when they're ready or having a good day. It's leaning on the systems of the business, the architecture of the business, if you will, and that is established. I think they also know how to prioritize and set better boundaries with themselves, what they're available for, what they're not, what's revenue generating versus busy work, what's the deep work that I need to do on my business versus being in reaction mode, being available with interruptions, notifications, all these things happening. Usually folks at that level have set really clear boundaries around themselves, what they're not available for anymore, which I think is a really good place to get to. So they've got that security and stability in what they're building. And they're also then detached emotionally from, again, the individual sales or individual situations or things. So they're just so confident in their zone and their lane and what they're doing that they get to operate because they expect results at that point. They just expect it. It's part of their normalcy, right? They've normalized what they're doing in business. And I think that's a big mindset place to get to.
That's a huge piece, especially when you talked about how they expect results. So they don't let one bad launch, one no on a discovery call tear them down. They just keep going. They go, okay, it's all right. Like I've got a lot to learn from this.
They get curious about it. They may adjust their messaging or inform it, but it's a system. They're not looking for personal validation in every interaction. I think that's what's a big shift when you're in the beginning. We're still kind of unsure. So I think you have to get to a place where you don't need that external validation, where you trust yourself enough. You can let those roll. It's not about batting 1,000 every time. It's about working the system of your business at that point.
Yeah. And the other piece that you talked about that I think is so important is not being in a reactive mode. It's not like, I wake up today, I've got these fires to put out. I'll focus on those first. And then by the time you get to it, sorry, I've ran out of time to do my marketing or post on Instagram for today. We'll push that for tomorrow. And we're just constantly putting out fires. And a lot of business owners, unfortunately, get into that zone because of the busyness of life and of business. You just kind of get stuck working in it that you don't get time to step away and think about the bigger picture. I find a lot of value in planning ahead so that I know what my year looks like. Like Katrina, every year towards the end of the year, I tell you, okay, these are the times I'm taking my holidays. These are the times we're going to launch. So you have an idea.
I'm impressed by that, by the way.
Well, I've got a very busy daughter as well, so I got to plan around at school and all of that. So it forces me to do that. And plus, I have a team going, okay, what's happening next year? When do we start planning for the next launch? And I find a lot of value in that because it helps me to get my thoughts out on paper. It's clear for me. It's clear for everyone. And so I want to talk about the planning aspects of business a little bit because I find that without a plan, we'll just fall off the wagon and things come.
It feels real hard if you don't have a plan.
Yeah. So how can a business owner plan ahead? Maybe they don't have to plan a year ahead, like even by the quarter or every 6 months. I think that's valuable. So how can they plan or set aside time to do that?
Again, as you're scaling up to that maybe 10K figure mark, you're learning what's working. And then you can start to plan to repeat what's working, right? So if it's in a launch module, if it's certain types of marketing activities, depending on how you want to build your offerings, you start to know what kind of a cadence makes sense. So I do think a 90-day or a 6-month plan can be really kind of liberating. People run from structure and from plans because they feel like it's going to constrict them. My experience has been the complete opposite. It totally frees you up then to live life, do other things. And like that's one less thing on your brain. So I do think, again, even if you have to block out 30 minutes a week to work on the business where notifications are off, doors closed, all these things where you can just sit and have a clear brain. And even if it's pencil and paper, it doesn't have to be in a platform or in a calendar and a whatever. Sketch out what makes sense for you, what rhythm, makes sense. And a lot of this gets to be based on your desires for your business, right? If you have financial goals, you get to use those to dictate how often and when you want to be putting offers out and at what scale, right? So it can totally be reverse engineered from what you want your life to be. If you have a big vacation coming up, you want to do things before a vacation. I would even start with putting your personal stuff in the schedule first and then building the business around it. I think that can be a really liberating way to do your business planning so that it all starts to make sense. That's the why you're doing what you're doing anyway. So I would, even old school pencil and paper as a quick sketch of things is a beautiful place to start. Start with personal life goals first, and then what does the business have to do to support that? And that will start to make things feel less chaotic, feel less reactive, feel less off the cuff, right?
A life first business. So essentially you're planning your business to fit around the lifestyle, the holidays that you want to take. That's amazing and a great place to get to when you can do that. The first couple of years will be challenging because you're kind of still creating, you're figuring, and you're, evaluating and improving the way you launch and getting more experience as well. So it wouldn't feel like that at the start, but eventually you'll get to that. That is the goal for most people. And I want to talk about that planning aspect a little bit more as well, because I've got some clients who go, I've got young kids. I cannot do a live webinar launch. And so then it's helpful to think about what fits your lifestyle because there isn't one way of doing things, right? So I think it's so important for you, listeners, to give yourself permission to go, okay, like I can't do a live webinar right now because I have kids running it at 7 p.m. in the evening wanting you to tuck them into bed. That's okay. Push with the evergreen webinar or do like a challenge that is shorter each day and go for 3 days or whatsoever. There's so many different ways to do a launch. So don't feel like you have to do it a certain way just because someone says you have to.
I think that's probably the most useful piece of advice we've shared so far. Don't follow somebody else's template just because they said it's the only way to market. That does not exist. So absolutely your business plan and your marketing strategies should absolutely relate to your capacity, your real life challenges, limitations, boundaries, all the things. I think that's a beautiful reminder because we do get a little wrapped up in the way that marketing traditionally was taught was a copycat method, right? This worked for me. Do it exactly like this. It'll work for you. And that just isn't the modern world we're living in. And the good news is in the online space, they have so many options. So you don't have to be boxed into something that doesn't suit you.
Absolutely. Fully agree with that. And that's what I see work with most of our clients. They go, I can't launch during this period, even though I know I'm going to get lots of clients. I can't. So I'm just going to push my evergreen webinar. And they've got another lever to push. They can use ads to do that. So that is the fun part of business. You get to have control. You get to pull the levers when you need to. And you just have to trust yourself to keep pushing through with that. Yeah, because I see a lot of people kind of run out of steam by 12 to 18 months in business. I don't know if you noticed that as well. We all start with a lot of enthusiasm. It's great. And then things don't work as well as before. And we think, that's it. That's the lifetime of the business.
Yeah, the messy middle. Yeah.
That is the messy middle. And 12 months, I think, is what most people give themselves to go, I'll just test the waters and see. And if it doesn't work, they'll go back to doing their own thing. Yeah. Do you see that often? Any thoughts to share around that longevity in business and sustainability?
It's so interesting. And I don't think people talk about this very much, but it's very valuable to say. I think we as humans tend to have this expectation of how fast things are really going to come together. And while I believe all things are possible, absolutely, we do this weird thing where if we don't hit some arbitrary milestone by some arbitrary date that our brain just decided on randomly, we decide we failed and we label it a complete failure and we completely backtrack and drop everything we just put effort into. And for whatever reason, a year does seem to be the mark that a lot of people in business will give themselves arbitrarily. I don't know that there's any science behind that. I think it's just a cultural thing. What I will say is it's normal to have to go through an adjustment phase. Like if you have great success in the beginning, we build some stuff, we get to a place where you're going to have to make some shifts. Sometimes there's new marketing strategies or things have shifted a little bit in the online space, the consumer space, the algorithms, who knows what. You need to adjust. Or messaging that maybe was really relevant a year ago, now your customers, consumers are in a different space and we need to tweak the message again. This is where we talked about folks not wanting to do the grunt work of getting their messaging really, really dialed in. That's the time when you kind of have to go back to just having conversations with people and figuring it out so that you can then get it to click again and get the bump to the next phase of growth. So I think that's one piece that is very normal. And we've seen how much the market has evolved in the online space in just a couple of years, right? Consumers aren't going to be the same, even in your niche, forever. You're going to have to adapt as new generations come of age, as people age out of things, age into things, your consumer behavior and like the language they want to use is going to be different. So that's one piece that will always have to be solved around that point. I think the other is, we talked about like getting support and being resourced. At some point, you just can't be the one doing it all yourself. And a lot of people are hesitant to invest in support at that point, even if that's the thing that gets them over the hump into the next level of growth and stability. So those are the two biggest things I think people overlook or are afraid to do at kind of that stage. But the ones that choose to do the work and or get support in doing the work are the ones that tend to make it into the longevity, right?
I agree so much with that, because if we think about speed in business, that is so important. Don't drag your feet with making decisions on things. If you know, okay, I need to launch my program by this date, but I don't know how I'm going to make it happen. I haven't got time. I've got kids. I've got my part-time job. So then think objectively, how can I get it done? You know, it could mean getting some support to help you put the slides together, edit the videos. It could be thinking about setting aside time, having a conversation with your partner, going, I want to reserve like a full day every Saturday to do this. So can you look after the kids just for the next 6 weeks or something? You know, it doesn't mean that you're a bad mom, doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you're prioritizing, and it's only a small stage of your business that you'll be doing the building. Once the program is done, you'll be doing the marketing and selling. So you shift into different seasons. So yeah, like collapsing time, getting more done in the small amount of time. And the busier you are, the more you kind of need to think about sourcing and getting support. And business can be really lonely sometimes as well, isn't it? You kind of just sit there and question yourself, am I the only one experiencing this? Is it me, or has it shifted overall? What do I need to change and adjust? And even if you don't get a coach or a mentor, I think it's so valuable having a community around you of other people who are doing it. So you've got companionship and also someone to bounce ideas with.
Especially if you're trying to build this from home, wherever you are remotely, that can be an echo chamber that can get a little noisy with some old negative brain patterns or just assumptions about things, because your brain will always create its own answers. It doesn't have an answer. And so that's where, being connected to a community that can make you not feel alone, validate that your experience is totally normal and it's fine and it's all going to be okay and there's a way forward. Super, super incredibly helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of brings me to the retreat conversation, having that community. I've been in masterminds in the past. I've been to a lot of different in-person events. I don't know if you've been to in-person retreats as well, Katrina. I just find the experience, like, I hosted my own in Bali last year, but even before that, I've been to one. It's just so different, getting out of your day-to-day environment. So yeah, let's chat about that a little bit. What do you think about retreats, and what type of person do you think would benefit most from that experience?
Beautiful question. I think we got real comfortable working online and remotely for the last few years, and now we're really craving that in-person energy, human touch experience. I would say my experience has been also with going to events and retreats that the environment itself compresses the time to change. And it's partly because identity shifts happen when you're in this immersive environment. You're also maybe out of your routine, so you can see things differently that you wouldn't maybe have noticed back in your little zone. I think proximity also expands what feels possible, and decisions get made faster. So I find that in-person can be really, really powerful. I've always loved, whether it's a VIP day, conference, retreat, all these things, there's a reason people go to them again and again and again. And it's because they're getting a lot out of it. And that's a great way to sort of 10x either your mindset, your identity, your strategy, wherever you're feeling like you need a little bit of extra oomph in your system. I think it's really, really valuable. So I think you asked who would benefit. I feel like if you're feeling like one of those people who gets to be isolated, especially in your niche or your industry specific events and retreats can be really, really impactful. Because again, it's so nice having community, having go-to people, or even just the reflective experience of someone else in a similar place that makes you feel really connected to, okay, this is something that a lot of folks are working on, a lot of folks are dealing with, a lot of folks have moved through, and it really gives you a lot more of that confidence boost and kind of yourself and your ability. So that's been my personal experience, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I experienced those things as well, just being in person. It's so different to virtual retreats. Like I've done workshops online with our clients and stuff, but it's just so different. Like you're missing that proximity, just being in the room with other people talking about your experiences. And what was really cool was last year when I ran the Bali retreat, like there were some people who I could tell when they first step in, they're like, I don't know these people. It's a bit scary. I'm going to just stay in my own shell. But then just to see them slowly open up over the next few days as people share about what challenges they face in business. And then they feel like, oh, I'm not the only person who's experiencing this. And to talk about not just like the business side of things, but the things that are impacting on the business, like the mum guilt, the relationships with the partner, and all of those kind of things. You know, we had a psychologist there last year, so she brought that piece with her as well and provided support to our clients. But I think, yeah, it's just the conversations that you have. I think it's so different.
More space to have more interesting and valuable conversations. That's really the difference. Like in a Zoom room, everything is so curated. Like it's not quite as open. And when you're in real time, face to face with real people, like so many magical conversations just naturally evolve that are very, very valuable for the business and personal. I think both sides, to your point, get addressed when it's real person events. Yep.
Absolutely. And the best conversations came out, I think, when we're having dinner, just like chit-chatting, or people were just hanging out by the pool and talking about things. And I think that was very nice. Yeah. And I think, you know, like talking about making decisions as well, sometimes we kind of get in our own head and we stay there. But then when you get to talk it out with people and you brainstorm, not just with the host of a retreat, but within the group with other people, you start to see things differently and you get that confidence, go, oh, yep, like I can do this, like I've got it.
External perspective, is a real big confidence boost. And it's even just multiplied in power when it's in a group setting, like at a retreat or in person. It's just really, really impactful in my experience. So
yeah, thanks, Katrina, for giving us that perspective. I want to chat about being a woman in business, because I think that doesn't get talked about a lot. There's a lot of very masculine roles out there, a lot of masculine coaches out there, and they always talk about, you know, you just got to do more, try harder, and all of those things. And it works well when someone has a lot of time and they have a lot of help. But for the majority of us, we live in a very busy world. We've got kids, we've got school runs, we've got all sorts of things happening, and then being a wife and making sure we call our mums and all of that. You know, there's so much. So do you have any advice for the busy woman practitioner who's trying to juggle it all?
First is give yourself grace. We are not trying to live up to a male standard when he doesn't share the responsibilities of a household or other things or other stuff going on. Plus societal pressures that are naturally on women differently. I think that's just helpful to acknowledge, right? I would say the skill to really thrive as a woman in business is getting really good at boundary setting and asking for support. I think we're taught not to ask for things as women. Don't be too much. Don't be too much. Don't be too difficult. Don't be too insert adjective, right? To be successful in business, we're going to have to ask for stuff. So Charlene's example of, hey, honey, I really need to get this thing built for the next 6 weeks. Can you give me 4 hours a day on Saturday so I can get into my zone and get stuff done just watching the kids? Beautiful example. Can you get support with other things, right? Are there other ways to lean into support in your personal life to free up space for the business life? It is a juggling act, but I think the biggest disservice women tend to do is expecting to have to wear the superwoman cape alone and never have to negotiate these other things in life. So everything should be on the table. A housekeeper should be on the table. Support from extended family or neighbors or whoever or partners should be on the table. Negotiating, if you have a different job, day job that you're trying to then also build this on the side, negotiating your hours and or availability with your employer should be on the table. We are not trained to negotiate as women. And I do think that is the one skill to lean into. It's going to be uncomfortable. But the beauty on the other side is what you're trying to build for yourself. That business that actually fuels your life and supports what you truly want. So worth it. So if you can handle 30 seconds of discomfort, those are the conversations to lean into to be a successful woman in business. That's been my experience.
And again, it comes back to thinking and acting and making decisions like as if you're already at that 10K a month mark in your business. And so we just have to stay in discomfort a little bit to make sure we get there. So we ask for things. And one of the biggest shifts that I made that really freed up my mental capacity is getting help with the house. I remember very early on, I think it was like 2021, somewhere around there, I was like, I can't work a mess in the house, like because I work from home, right? And to see laundry, to see that the lawn wasn't mowed, the dishes are there, it just made me really uncomfortable. And I was like, I need to go do that, but I got to also do all of this in my business as well. And for a lot of people, they go, oh, I better do the dishes before the kids come home, and they put the business to the side. And you got to clear the clutter, the mental clutter. And if you can't operate in that situation, you haven't got time, it's okay. You are not a bad mom. You're not a bad wife by asking for help with your home. I have full-time help in my home now, and that is the best thing that I've done.
Best investment ever.
Do not have to worry about all the things. You know, it is not cheap, but it's also really good for me because then I can go faster. I can go further in business, and I stay in the zone that I'm best at. I'm not very good at scrubbing toilets. Someone else can do it. I'm not the best at ironing and making the clothes look crease-free, but someone else who's really good at that, who finds joy in doing that, can do it. And it's a win-win situation for everyone at the end of the day.
I look at these, I also have help in the house, and my partner is the one responsible for cooking. So I have delegated the things that don't support my vision to the people that are really good at doing that. I look at it as an investment, but I also think the biggest hurdle for women is it comes down to like worthiness. We don't feel like it's worth it for us or for our business project to be able to make these shifts. And I think that's the place to play because you and the life you want to build are absolutely worth it. But that's something to maybe rewire so that you can then have the support that helps you get there.
Well said. We are worthy of it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Katrina, for this honest chat. I feel like there was so much we talked about, but a really valuable conversation. And I hope that for our listeners, it's challenged you to think outside the box. And if you're stuck somewhere, you can't see the clarity in the way to move forward, ask for help, reach out to people, talk to someone who's done it before and ask for direction on how you can step out of it. Don't struggle with it alone. And if you're juggling a lot on your plate right now, it's okay to ask for help. Give yourself permission. You're worthy of it. So I love that advice from Katrina. Thank you so much. Any final words for our listeners, Katrina, before we go?
I think we covered so much good ground. I always just like to operate from a place of possibility. It's all possible. If you believe that it's possible for someone else, it's absolutely possible for you. And so if there's a nudge on your heart or an inkling to take the leap and grow a private practice or a private business as a practitioner, and something that could scale, that could give you freedom, that could change the world for your family, that could change your situation, it's possible. So I would start there, and then it all gets more exciting.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Katrina. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. I will see you guys back here next week. Have a great week ahead. Take care.